Thursday, April 10th, as you watch this. This is the Waitin All Day for Sunday Night podcast. He's Chase Younts at YountsChase32. On Twitter, I'm Alex Frank at Frankie_Natty on Twitter. Chase, it's the middle of the week. We're coming off a very, very good Final Four weekend. I mean, those were three fantastic basketball games.
That doesn't happen a whole lot. We had, the Auburn-Florida game being an SEC matchup, scoring, and then Duke and Houston was a very good game, and Duke found a way to lose in the final 10 minutes. But and then you also had the national championship game, which was very good, interesting, and an odd way to end the game. But, it happened, and every single team that led at halftime in San Antonio lost. So that's the power of sports. It's not over until the final gun blows, and that's what happened. And the Florida Gators are the national champs.
Not only that, but every team that led at the final media timeout ended up losing.
That's even crazier.
So don't mean to one up your stat about halftime, but it's just a fantastic weekend, and I think the best team won. And congratulations to Todd Golden and the Florida Gators, and I mean that's their third national championship in the last 20 seasons, and they are rebuilding quite an elite program down in Gainesville, Florida.
They definitely are. And I mean, Todd Golden, one of the brighter young coaches that was coming up, was previously at San Francisco. And there was a piece where Sean Farnham was talking about him on a show. And back a few years ago when Todd Golden got hired as the Florida head coach, and he was like, I think that Todd Golden's going to get to a Final Four or win a national championship somewhere within the next 6 years. Wow. And there you go, doing it in year 3. And Todd Golden, I mean, one of, a great start to his younger portion of his career. He's got a lot of years left as a big-time coach.
Youngest head coach to win a national championship since 1983 when some guy named Jim Valvano won, ironically, against Houston. We all know that game, the famous Lorenzo Charles game winner. So, and also congratulations to former Gators head coach Billy Donovan on his induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Chase, what a class this year. I mean, the names that are on this year's class, from Carmelo Anthony to Sue Bird to Billy Donovan to Maya Moore. I mean, just a who's who of players and coaches and executives, broadcasters going in.
Day after day, it's legend after legend. That's what the Hall of Fame was for.
Yes. And that is our Final Four talk for today's show, but we had to get that in there because it was a truly fantastic weekend. The Alamo Dome is a great place for the Final Four. It's a fantastic venue. If I had my choice, I think it should be there every year. Just with it is a nice arena down in San Antonio. Coming up on today's show, we are going to do a lot of Bengals conversation because we really haven't, Chase, done that in a while, if you think about it. But and then we also got another mock schedule coming out. This time it's Monday Night Football. And like Sunday Night Football on NBC, Monday Night Football on ESPN is also celebrating its 20th season. So there will be some big-time games on the schedule for our mock schedules. Chase, I got to amend the Bengals-Bills Sunday Night Football Week 17 game I have on my mock schedule. I got to amend that. I was listening to a podcast today called It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. And for anyone out there, I know we have a lot of Bengals fans that listen to this show, and the Bengals podcasts are really, really good. Outside of the Bengals, I think the best NFL team with podcasts devoted to them is the Bills. There is quite an array of podcasts. So I'm listening to this podcast called It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, and they had Mike North on. Of course, we talked about him a lot last week. And Mike North brought up something that we haven't mentioned on this show. This is the Bills' final season in their current stadium.
Wow. When you put it that way, I mean, you're thinking about, and I like the thinking on that, Alex. I saw the Bengals Bills in your mock on Monday night. Send-off game possibly in the regular season, that is.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think the Bills are going to play at least 1, 2, maybe 3 postseason games there because I think they're going to win the AFC East. I know it's early for predictions, but is anyone really beating the Bills in the AFC East this year?
No one's shown it.
Exactly. Okay. By the way, listen, the NFL draft dominates headlines. The NFL news cycle this time of year, but the NFL schedule is right around the corner. Sometimes you kind of need a break from that hype machine that the NFL draft is. That's what we're here for, Chase, talking about schedules. But we go to the Cincinnati Bengals and the offseason that they've had. Obviously, the biggest event was signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to contract extensions. Second of that is the Trey Hendrickson and the ongoing saga, war, bidding war, negotiation war, whatever you want to call it, Chase, I want to ask you straight up. What do you think of the Bengals offseason so far?
If you would have asked me before the weekend of St. Patrick's Day, before March 16th at like 11 o'clock p.m., I'd say it's been going piss poor, but it's turned around a bit. Obviously getting the deals done with Jamar and T, but outside of that, it's been smaller signings here and there that, trying to plug gaps in the system. I think the Bengals could have done more in this offseason window. It's just they've gone out and gone after players. They have, but then there's also been some players that a lot of fans and a lot of media speculation of, maybe they should go after this guy. This guy's got a pretty good background. Some players have even come out and said that they want to play for the Cincinnati Bengals, but no one has apparently reached out at all. So that part is frustrating. I think the front office is evolving in a way, but I just think that the Bengals, and this isn't a thing, everyone knows the Bengals front office does a lot of things late. They do. You see the contract. Again, they could have got Jamar Chase for $35 million. They could have got T. Higgins for $23 million at one point. It's $58 million between the two. Now you got Jamar Chase for $40 million and T. Higgins for around, $29 million this season. And that's $69 million. That extra $11 million could have been to get another star or retain a star in Trey Hendrickson and pay him when you could have paid him. So the Bengals like to do a lot of things late, like to do a lot of things way beyond when they probably should have. That's still frustrating. But again, I think it's been a fine offseason. I just would have liked to see some more things happen defensively because that's the biggest issue on this team. But we figured out our offense and nailed that down.
They have gotten done what they needed to get done. Well, I should say 75%, which is still good. I mean, I was pretty happy when on the Saturday of the second, it was on March 8th, when they signed Mike Gesicki. That was nice. That was really good to see them do that. A tight end free agent that they signed last year to a 1-year deal, he comes in, he proves himself, he gets an extension. That was really good. And then they got a good run stopper in TJ Slayton. They go out and, supplement their linebacking core with Oren Burks. Now, I agree with you. I do wish they would have done a little bit more on the free agent side because they have done a lot the last few off seasons. I mean, we got used to that. The Bengals were big players in free agency. Guys like Trey Hendrickson and Orlando Brown Jr. And then the offensive line splurging they went on in 22. And then even last year with like Trent Brown and Zach Moss and Gesicki. Like we've seen them do that. But I think us wanting more, I think may cloud and conflict with what this offseason and what the goal of this offseason was. And that was to ensure, especially after Joe Burrow goes public and says what he thinks can happen and should happen, which is extending your star players. And they're 75% of the way there. I know there's speculation from guys like Tony Pauline that Trey Hendrickson could get traded on draft day weekend. Look, anything at this point could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Trey Hendrickson is going to be a Bengal in 2025. I just get the feeling that he wants to be here. I think the Bengals front office wants him to be here. It's just a matter of what the contract situation is going to ultimately come as far as a resolution. But I'm happy with what the Bengals have done. I just think that I'm worried that we're going to get to the start of the season and there's going to be a game early or two where fans are going to come out and say, see, we told you they should have done more. We knew they should have done this. We knew they should have done that. You don't want that. Now, start 4-0, and we're going to say, hey, this team can win the Super Bowl this year. And I think they can win the Super Bowl as it is right now. But I think there's also this feeling of, can they lose that many games the way they did last season again this season? That's why I feel like they think they're closer to the Super Bowl than they are towards being 5-12 or something like that. In 21, they had a free agency splurge because they were closer to the bottom. They knew they needed to. They knew they needed to get more competitive. They did, and then look what they ended up doing in 21. So this front office I think it's smarter than we give it credit for. Again, as you said, Chase, they do things late. They're not proactive. They're not aggressive. They're not like historically they're not market setters. Like they're more of a reactionary franchise. And is that fine? Yes. And I think a lot of fans are upset because they saw what the Philadelphia Eagles did. Okay. Like, do you think the Eagles are an anomaly in this case? And what they did is very hard to replicate.
It's hard to replicate, but people can find ways to get money in many different ways. But Howie Roseman is definitely something else. He's definitely an outlier.
Yeah,
he's
a good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's
in a good way for them, in a great way for them. Actually,
it is. And I mean, look, the Bengals have changed a lot of their ways.
They have
in the Joe Burrow era, and I appreciate that. Is there still more they can do? Yes, but they signed their top 2 wide receivers when it was becoming apparent that maybe they weren't going to do that, and they got both of them. Like, that's a significant accomplishment. Now, I know since then there's been comments about Hendrickson, and there's been comments about the stadium lease, which, I mean, maybe this is just negotiations and how they play out. I don't know. I'm not a businessman. And I also think that there's too much going for the Bengals with as far as stardom and the relationship and fan experience, and the fans are as into the Bengals as they've ever been. Look, they're not leaving Cincinnati. Downtown, maybe.
It's the quotes. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's the quotes. People pull certain parts of quotes and then they try to run with it at Mike Florio. But again, it sometimes happens, I get it, but you pull quotes and, you don't put the full quote out. You don't read the full quote. You don't want to post the full quote out there. So it's just, I don't know. It's interesting how people decide to choose specific teams that they want to do that with and not, but I'll stop right there.
Like maybe it's just like I was talking to, like, my family's been Bengals fans since the beginning. We've had season tickets. Mm-hmm. I was talking to my mother about this. She goes, yeah, I mean, why is like Katie Blackburn saying empty threats? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, why is she going that route? And look, maybe she's just saying things just to say them. Do you really believe them? I don't know. I personally, I'm not worried yet. But look, this offseason, for as much success as there has been drama. But that happens with any team.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the news out of Miami today, but Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole.
But again, I mean, when you're looking at, everything that's gone on with the Bengals, I don't think we have any sort of a question that if everyone on that offense stays healthy, that offense is going to be one of the best offenses in the National Football League. It's the literal question is the defense, and you're going to have to make an impact in the draft with new defensive coordinator Al Golden. Go out and get some guys that are going to be impact players, especially your first 2 days worth of draft picks, rounds 1, 2, and 3. Those guys have to be immediate players on the field that can help this defense win games and mesh as younger guys with these older guys on the field. Figure it out from there. Get the trade thing done. The offense is already set. Guys stay healthy as much as they can, and then the Bengals can get back to where they were before.
Yep. And I think there should be some confidence that the Bengals can nail their first 3 draft picks this year, because last year you look at what they did. They drafted Amarius Mims. He was a big-time hit. I mean, you have your starting right tackle of the future. That great pick. And then in the second round, they get Chris Jenkins Jr. He's good. They get McKinley Jackson. He adds depth to the defensive line. Retaining B.J. Hill. I know Duke Tobin said we're not going to pay more for the same team, which I'm really confused by that because, like, they have a lot of the core from last year that they've signed this offseason so far, but maybe it's because they believe in it. So then it's like, well, why did Duke Tobin say what he said? Okay, well, then again, think about who they subtracted, Chase, that maybe kind of makes this team better. Sam Hubbard retired. Obviously, we wish him all the best.
Yeah.
Alex Kappa was cut. Didn't have a great season last year. Sheldon Rankins was cut. Didn't really materialize into much last year. Who else? I mean, like you look at what the Bengals have done. Yeah, they have a lot of the same team, but it's because they were good last year, and it was just when it came down to winning games, They couldn't finish.
Alex, I watched the Chargers game earlier. It was on NFL Network.
Oh,
I don't know. I watched all the way up until the Bengals tied the game early in the fourth quarter when I got home from classes and everything. But when I looked at it, that was the moment, where it was the Bengals season right there. That last 30 minutes with the Bengals season. And they came out and played their hair on fire. If they would have finished that game off, completely different story. You win the game, all the situations changes and everything else, going into the bye, go to the play, all that stuff. But that was a team that just couldn't finish games, and it was in the weirdest ways possible. And it never was the same. It was never really the same on how they couldn't finish a game. It was all in different types of ways. It was missed field goals, not converting on third down, giving up a big third down conversion here or there, or fourth down, and penalties and everything else. They just found a lot of different ways to lose football games. And like you mentioned, that, they had a good football team last year. They just were not able to put it together at the last stance. And, Bill Parcells, the old saying, he said, "You are what your record says you are." Yeah. And the Bengals record said they were a 9-8 football team that was above 500, but they couldn't finish out those games against the good teams. They beat the bad teams, lost to the good teams, and they just were right there on the cusp. They just weren't good enough to make the postseason, and they have to get over that hump this year. There's no excuse in 2025.
You're thinking along the same wavelength as me. So I also watched the Bengals-Chargers game today. I watched, and I actually went ahead after the game was tied and watched it all the way through. And, it was tough reliving it for the second time.
Yeah.
It was gut-wrenching because Joe Burrow was so good in that second half.
I got to say, and I don't want to cut you off again. I got to say, man, when Justin Herbert fumbled that ball and the Bengals got the ball back immediately, and Joe Burrow was able to sniff out the pressure that Derwin James was applying, and then you had the rest of that front seven coming after him, gets out of the pocket. He could have ran that ball. He could have got yards, eyes downfield. Let's move laterally. Let's make a throw over the top to Chase Brown. That right there, if the Bengals would have won the game, I think that would have been the play of the season, which turned everything around, because that Joe Burrow, nobody in the league wants to see that, but they saw it this year. Let's do it again next year.
Collinsworth said that on the broadcast, and then there was another play on that drive. It was a 3rd and 13 where Joey Bosa has Joe Burrow in his grasp, and Joe Burrow then goes up left, throws over the top to Chase Brown. Bengals score. He was just relentlessly competitive in that game. Like, even on the final desperation drive, the throw to Josipach to get it to Hail Mary territory. Yeah. And then with a blitz coming at him on the Hail Mary, he gets the ball. T. Higgins has the ball in his hands, and one of the best safeties in the NFL, Derwin James, pops up. Burrow got the ball to the goal line.
Yeah, he did.
He laid every possible thing out on the field that he had in him in that game. I have a theory from that game. You want to hear it?
Let's hear it.
If the Bengals had won, I think Burrow would have dropped the bombshell about T. Higgins that he dropped 3 weeks later that night in L.A. It would have been so calculated. They come from behind. They win their first game at SoFi Stadium since the Super Bowl. They get a much-needed win to save their season. They're going into their bye week. Let's get some material here. Let's get the front office thinking. He starts the conversation on Burrow and Higgins. I think he would have gotten it going because Chase and Higgins both were fantastic that night.
They definitely were. And the other Chase was very good too. So it was that whole group that was fantastic. And then T. Higgins made the big play on a 4th down conversion late in the third quarter. So, like you mentioned, I agree with that theory, since the next time, the time that Joe Burrow said that was when the Bengals won their next football game. And that happened to be about a little over a month apart from their last win against the Raiders. It would have came that night against the Chargers, and I think it would have propelled them the rest of the season. But again, the hindsight's 2020, and images can get distorted when you think about them for too long.
Yes, they can. Well, also from that game, like you said, Chase, that game was an encapsulation of the season.
It was.
It wasn't just Evan McPherson missing 2 field goals. It was Jermaine Burton trying to catch a touchdown pass with one hand as opposed to just catching it with 2 hands in the second quarter, excuse me. It was Mike Hilton dropping what could have been a pick 6 on the Chargers, like second to last drive of the game. It was the final possession. How did the Chargers go 84 yards in like 27 seconds, whatever it was? 84 yards in 4 plays. And then, I mean, Jamar Chase not being on the field for 2nd and 10 after a missed deep shot. Zach Taylor doesn't call a timeout when he has like 2 of them, or what might have been 1. I think it was 2, actually. And then Burrow's getting pressured. He has T. Higgins wide open 10 yards in front of him, and he short balls it. Like, just, I mean, when the Bengals tied the game, I said, okay, here we go. This is going to be the turning point of the season. There were outbursts on the sidelines in the first half, but damn it, these last 30 minutes, they knew their season was on the line. Like, that game was the most crushing game of the season. The Bengals, after that game, they had 6 games where they scored, ready for this? So they had, I mean, they had 2 3-game stretches where they scored, after that game, where they scored 33, 34, 38 against Washington, Carolina, and Baltimore. Yep. Then they scored 41, 34, 27 against the Raiders, Ravens, and Chargers. That's a combined 208 points, and they went 2-4 in those games. 2-4.
Sigh.
The rest of the NFL through week 11 was 63-3, where they scored 30 or more points. 2 losses by Tampa Bay, 1 by Indianapolis. Okay. I want to get to this point that I've been thinking of, Chase, and I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think the Bengals front office has been a forward-thinking front office since Joe Burrow arrived in 2020?
They've been forced to do it.
That's a fair point.
When you have that great of a player, you can't just sit back. They've gotten better at it. There's still a lot more room to go with what they can do when it comes to being that forward-thinking front office. But when you have the number 1 overall pick in your building and you've been bad for a good stretch of years, and when you look at the entirety of a franchise that has not won a Super Bowl and has made only 2 Super Bowl appearances, and the Bengals had that 33-year gap between Super Bowls. I mean, you're forced to adapt. You're forced to change. You have the number 1 overall pick. You have T. Higgins, Logan Wilson. You sign Trey Hendrickson. You draft Jamar Chase number 5 overall. When you get to that point and you're at rock bottom, the only way you can go is up, unless you want to stay down there. And the Bengals definitely did not want to stay down there. No. So they had to change. Guys are able to make plays. Young guys are able to make plays. And then they're able to go out and buy, and buy Joe Burrow some more weapons. They were able to buy him some protection with the offensive line and everything else. And they're able to spend before they're able to sign Joe Burrow to the extension. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, everybody else to their extensions and everything. So the Bengals were forced to do it. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, nobody's going to forgive you for what happened here. So that's the stance that Cincinnati has been in, and I'm glad that they've been able to adapt over the course of time.
I think it's a fair point to say they've been forced to, because, I mean, let's be honest, the state of the franchise in the winter of 2019, even though we knew they were going to draft Joe Burrow, it was at a very low point. The relationship between the team, the organization, and the fan base was not good. And, I remember 2019, the stadium was half full for some games. And Zach Taylor kept saying, well, when we're playing for championships, we'll thank those fans. And I'm like, when do you think this team is going to play for championships? And lo and behold, 2 years later, they're in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, sometimes belief is a good thing. Yeah, it just had gotten to that point where you were forced to change. And I think Joe Burrow coming in, I think not having fans or a limited capacity due to COVID-19, I think that maybe caused Mike Brown to rethink some of the things he was doing. He relied more on his granddaughters, Elizabeth and Caroline Blackburn, which I have a tremendous amount of love and admiration and respect for them, and what they did for the game day experience in 21, and they still have to this day. I mean, the jungle is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. Now, the Bengals' home record may not completely reflect that, but you see how much fun the games are now when you go to them. And I will say this, drafting Jamar Chase was a bold move. It felt like, it was like a fork in the road. And if you you go this way, draft Jamar Chase, or you go this way and draft Penei Sewell. And a lot of people were saying, well, they should have taken Penei Sewell to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, Mike Tannenbaum even said the Bengals should be kicked out of the league. Well, we clearly saw what having a connection like Burrow and Chase can do. And the Bengals, in an era in the NFL where passing has become so prolific and having a game-changing number one wide receiver is so important, the Bengals have two locked up now. So in that sense, they are forward-thinking and saying, this is how we want to build our team. This is an era of offensive football where a premier quarterback and great playmakers matter. We believe that. We are going to double down on that. And they have. And this season, we're going to find out if their philosophy works. And a lot of teams can say, well, look at what the Eagles did. Look at what the Eagles did. Okay, that's just the Eagles, and that's just because they won the Super Bowl. Would you be saying that if the Lions won the Super Bowl? Would you be saying that if the Ravens won the Super Bowl, if Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl? All these teams that believe in quarterbacks and receivers and playmakers? Like, that's the thing. Like, everyone's so caught up in what Philly is doing. This was a unique year for Philly. This was a unique year. Their front office is unlike any in the NFL. So what the Bengals have done is they are forward thinking. They are now into the modern offensive era of the NFL. They have a premier quarterback and premier receivers. And by the way, Chase Brown's a pretty good running back who may have 1,000 yards this year. They could also draft a running back in the first or second round, or maybe in the later rounds of the NFL draft. So you get on the Bengals front office for not having evolved. They have evolved. As the NFL has evolved offensively, they said, hey, if we have a premier quarterback and two receivers that we lock all three of those up, we have our big three, we'll figure the rest out. That's what they're doing, and we'll see if it works this year. Chase, do you agree?
I agree. Yeah. They've got everything they need on offense. Go get what you need on defense and have those players develop. Let's get them out there. Draft guys that are going to play right away, and let's get after it.
I want to mention this about the offensive line real quick, because I know a lot of people are up in arms about the fact that the Bengals still need two guards. Here's what I'll say. Two things. Number one, you have three solid pieces on the offensive line. Your two tackles, good. Your center, good, reliable, leader. I can get behind that. If you have your tackles, you're good. Because it'd be one thing if you have your interior down. If you don't have your tackles, especially your blind side and left tackle for Joe Burrow, that's a problem. You got that figured out. And also, with the new offensive line coach, Scott Peters, coming in, I want to see what he can do with a guy like Cordell Volson, who started off pretty well in his career. He didn't have a great year last year. We'll be the first to admit that. But maybe Scott Peters can fix some things. Right guard's obviously a bigger question, but you bring in a guy like Lucas Patrick, who just looks like a guy that can maul in the interior. Yeah. That's someone I can get behind. And here's the other thing. Yeah, they didn't do a lot in free agency on the offensive line. Maybe it's because you have to also draft, develop, and retain, Chase. Don't you see the best teams in the NFL doing that? Like, maybe the Bengals say, hey, we did this with Amarius Mims last year. Let's try this again this year. I can get behind that. And the guys that people have wanted the Bengals to sign, Tevin Jenkins, I wasn't as high on him as others were. Brandon Scherf is 33. I mean, who else do Bengals fans want? Dalton Risner? Okay, that's one name. Like, let's see what Scott Peters can do. Yes, they need a right guard. I'm all for seeing if Lucas Patrick can be that. I'm all for drafting one in the first or second round. See what they can do there. But I think that the offensive line thing, and yes, it's because Joe Burrow. But if you have your tackles and your center figured out, and you have your two playmakers there, figure the rest out. Now, if Joe Burrow gets blown up week one, then I'll be a little angry. But yeah. Right now, I'm like, I'm not overly worried yet, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Draft a guard. We also have depth. I know Cody Ford being re-signed was bigger than what people think.
I think he's better than people realize.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, I would like another guard for depth. You have your pillars of both tackles and the center. And I'm not saying that your guards are, not pillars. It's an offensive line. But, I mean, you got to have, if those guys are able to step up their play from previous years and just be average to a little bit above average, and the guys that you expect to be great are great, and everybody else on this offense is flowing, that's an unstoppable offense in the National Football League are the Bengals.
I also think, too, like, when the Bengals splurged on Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and Lyle Collins in 22, like, they were all three good that year. But eventually we realized Frank Pollock's coaching, like, it went stale. Like, they didn't evolve much. Well, they went out and got, like, that's the one thing, too, about this offseason. Like, immediately after the season ended, the Bengals fired multiple assistant coaches. That's a bigger thing than changing personnel. Clearly, they needed new voices. So the offseason in that respect has been good.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a good offseason. It's been good, but it can be better. I think that's what we're hinting at here.
The offseason's a long thing. It is a long, drawn-out course. There are things that can happen. I know, obviously, the draft coming up in around 2 weeks, but which is crazy to think. But there is a lot more that can happen. There's still May. There's still June. There's still July. There are still August. There are still great players great players, good players.
Yeah.
There are still players out there that, they want to have a chance, and people can develop, and anything can happen in that time frame. That's why the NFL is so great.
B.J. Hill was acquired like less than 2 weeks before the season opener in a trade with the Giants. Look what that's turned into. He just got extended after already being here for 4 years.
Twice. 2 extensions.
When was the other extension?
2022, right before the season.
I'm now remembering that. I had forgotten about that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, too, and I was thinking about this. So this season's the 20th anniversary of the 05 team, which was when I started watching football and fell in love with that team and the Bengals. And I think about where the organization was that year. They had emerged from the lost decade of the 90s. Marvin Lewis had completely turned the franchise around. The relationship between the organization and the fan base was really good. I mean, you had fans on season ticket wait list. Games were sold out. The Bengals ran the city. I mean, Chad Johnson made the Bengals cool, and Carson Palmer and TJ Houshmandzadeh and guys like that. There were a lot of personalities on that team. The organization didn't take the next step after that season, though. They had everything going for them. Palmer gets extended, and he even said in his documentary on A Football Life that he thought the Bengals were going to get a GM. They were going to re-sign Kidna as his backup, and they never built off that season. And then I think about the 21 Bengals, and they did build off that season. They went to the AFC Championship game again next season. In the last 2 seasons, I think you and I would say that they've been in transition the last 2 years as far as the roster, with saying goodbye to key pieces like Jesse Bates and DJ Reader and other guys like Hayden Hurst and who else? Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd. The fact they've been 9-8 says a lot about Joe Burrow. I think it says a lot about Zach Taylor to a degree. And so now, they're not going to let mediocre seasons like 06 and 07 were, and then 09 when they won the division but only went 10-6 and lost in the wild card round, they bottomed out the next year. I don't get the sense that it's going to happen this season. So that's what I think about the 05 Bengals 20th anniversary now about the Bengals organization. What do you think, Chase?
Yeah, history is used to see what happened in the past, what worked, what didn't work, and the 2005 Bengals worked. Obviously, they won 11 games. But like you mentioned, the aftermath, that didn't work. So what do you have to do? Peel the history books back, look at it a little bit, and say, hey, we have pretty much the same thing right there when it comes to a core, and possibly better, I would say. They also took them to the Super Bowl in 21. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't do what we did 20 years ago. This doesn't happen every single day. So yeah, the Bengals came around. And I think when you, like you mentioned, when you have great players on your roster and you're able to fill the holes well enough and guys stay healthy, cohesive units, good coaching, all those things come together, you're always going to be in the mix for a playoff discussion. And if you make the playoffs, you're always going to have a chance to compete for Super Bowl when you have very talented players on your roster. And I always say it every single time and every single year, I would love for the Bengals to win the division. And they have a guy against Lamar Jackson that they have to play against every year. Now Derrick Henry. And then the Browns whenever they get their thing going, and they're tough out. And then the Steelers, they're always consistent. They haven't had a losing season since I was born. So you think about it, you just want a ticket to the dance. If the Bengals get a ticket inside the dance, anything can happen. And that's why 2024 was looking at, don't let the Bengals in. What they can do. 2025, if the Bengals are hot and the Bengals are that good, you don't want to go up to the Bengals and see them.
I don't care if they have to play on the road. If they play at home, they're winning at least one. They're winning at least one home playoff game. And they're going to play at least one home playoff game, and they're winning in the first round.
I think the Bengals might. And I know the Chiefs are out there and everything else. I think the Bengals are the team you least want to see on the road in the National Football League in a playoff game.
Yeah, because we know Joe Burrow can win on the road.
Simple as that.
Like when you have Joe Burrow, you have a chance. When you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you have a chance. And that's why this version of the Bengals keeps their stars together. Is there still more work to do? Yes. They need to evolve more on the defensive side of the ball. Look at Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Chase, I spent the whole day yesterday watching Steelers-Ravens highlights. You know why? They're the gold standard of the division. 16 combined division titles in the last 23 seasons. Is that right? 16? Something like that. Like the Bengals have 6, the Steelers have 9, the Ravens have, I think, 8. Okay, 17 combined division titles out of 23. So they've set the standard. They have set the standard. Defense matters. And that's why the Bengals front office has to get this right with Trey Hendrickson. And if they don't, they better draft well on the defensive end. JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Jahad Campbell from Alabama.
Yep.
Just to name a few names. Okay. Let's hit a refresh topic here. Chase, I want to give you my John Madden Thanksgiving games and Christmas games I want to see this year. You ready for this?
Rattle these off for me, and I'll react to them after you're done. Just fire them out. All right?
So you haven't seen them yet, because I wrote a column for this on twsn.net yesterday. I don't know if you've seen them yet, so if you have, that's okay. But if not, here we go. Okay. Let's start with Thanksgiving at 12:30 on Fox this year in Detroit. Chase, you go back the last 9 seasons, the Lions have played either a division team or an AFC team, depending on what network they were on. The last time they played an NFC team not in their own division was in 2015 against Philadelphia. That changes this year. And there's one team I want to see the Lions play on Thanksgiving, Tampa Bay.
There we go. I like it. I like it a lot.
Buccaneers, Lions, 12:30 on Fox. 4:30 on CBS in Dallas. Give me the Chargers and the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Justin Herbert has not played a holiday game yet. I mentioned this last week, Chase. Mm-hmm. He's that one player whose career really hasn't taken off yet. He's done a lot of good things. He's thrown for a lot of yards. We haven't really seen him on Thanksgiving or Christmas or those stages yet, and he hasn't won a playoff game. That changes this year. Jim Harbaugh coaching in Jerry World against Brian Schottenheimer, whose father, Marty Schottenheimer, God rest his soul, used to coach the Chargers for a lot of years. So that would be a fun matchup, Chargers and the Cowboys. We mentioned Steelers and Bengals on Thanksgiving night. We mentioned Rams, Falcons on Black Friday. Let's go to Christmas because this is about to rock your socks off, Chase Younts. Here we go. Best Christmas game I've ever seen was 9 years ago, the Ravens and the Steelers. Who called that game? Do you remember who called that game?
Mike Tirico and I believe Tony Dungy.
Yes, and the other color analyst was Marty Snyder, and the sideline reporter was Heather Cox. Gosh, I miss her. But Christmas just screams Ravens and Steelers chase at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. Terrible towel swirling. You can guarantee there will be playoff implications. So Ravens, Steelers, 1 o'clock on Netflix from Pittsburgh, and maybe Ian Eagle on the call, just as he was in Pittsburgh last year for Christmas. So that makes sense. All right, 4:30 game on Christmas. How about the Patriots and the Dolphins?
Ooh, in Miami.
Yes. Now think about this, Chase. The Patriots have some red in their uniforms. Maybe the Dolphins go with their throwback 1970s green jerseys. So Christmas looks like M&M colors. Yup. You know what? Christmas game in Miami where it's 70 degrees. I'm all in. Now we get to Thursday Night Football on Christmas night on Prime Video. Chase, these two teams also played on Christmas 9 years ago, but this time it's going to be in the Mile High City. Chiefs-Broncos. Chiefs and Broncos, if the Broncos are going to win the division and even just make the playoffs and how far they go in the playoffs, they're going to have to go through Kansas City. So there we go with the John Madden Thanksgiving games and the Christmas games. Can't wait for it, Chase. I mean, 3 divisional rivalries on Christmas, just how we like it.
I love all of it. I think those are all really good games, especially the Kansas City and Denver game at night. I think that's a very underrated one. That would be a great one for Prime to cap off their regular season. Mm-hmm. And then I also go back to that Ravens-Steelers game. I mean, who doesn't love a Ravens-Steelers rivalry one? And then who doesn't love it on Christmas? So again, and someone's going to go away with coal, and someone's going to have a nice present, hopefully, for them with a playoff berth or division title. Who knows what happens? And then we backtrack, talking that Thanksgiving look. Cowboys-Chargers, when they played in 2017, was a really weird game, and the Chargers dominated that game. I know there was a lot of different things that were going on, but I still remember the Chargers wore their powder blue uniforms, and the Cowboys wore their dark blue uniforms. It was a very odd picture that night, that evening, I would say. So I would really enjoy seeing Justin Herbert take on the Dallas Cowboys in the national spotlight right there. And I think all the games are really good that you picked, though, Alex.
Well, I try. I mean, I think like a Ravens-Steelers game on Netflix, they would love that because that's going to give them a huge ratings boost. I mean, you put the Ravens and Steelers on a streaming. I mean, look, they played last year a playoff game on Prime Video and did well. So we're seeing the evolution of football and how it's broadcasted and how it's streamed. And honestly, I like where it's going. I really do.
I agree. And I know you've got your Monday night mock scheduled. I did not make one. But what I want to hear for the Monday night mock scheduled is this, okay? Let's look at, we'll break it down in quarters, okay, or how many games, because ESPN gets a lot of games nowadays. But we'll break it down in, parts. And I want you to just give me week matchup, and then we'll just kind of look back and see which game really stands out in that group of 4 or 5 or whatever, and then we'll just roll from there because Monday Night Football, it's the value has gone up, especially with Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters.
It's going back up. It is going back up. By the way, I was reading Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia is not the most reliable source, but it is reliable for general information. I was reading that when Super Bowl 61 is on ESPN and ABC, first Super Bowl, by the way, to be simulcasted on 2 networks since I believe Super Bowl 1. Don't quote me on that. But I was reading that the Manning cast is going to be on ESPN2 for Super Bowl 61. So that's going to be fun.
Wow.
I mean, it's going to be on ESPN. That is going to be that might be one of the biggest days in the history of Disney. And this is significant here. February 14th of 2027. Boy, that's a long way away.
Valentine's.
And but you look at Monday Night Football, like when I first started watching football in 05 and 06, it was huge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was like Monday Night Football has always been a part of not just our culture and the sports culture, but American culture, Americana. Going back to Howard Cosell and Al Michaels and Mike Tirico, and now you get Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. It's done so much for it. I can't even begin to tell you. And I know you agree with me on that. Okay. By the way, you and I both reserve the rights to make any changes to these mock schedules as we feel necessary prior to the schedule release. I had to make an amendment. So, Chase, I don't know how this can happen, but I had Bengals hosting the Bears week 3, and then the Bears hosting the Packers week 3, Sunday Night Football. I don't know how that can happen. So I kind of had to change that a little bit. I moved the Bengals-Bears game to week 2. And then I moved the Bengals at the Browns in week 3 just because there's a Billy Joel concert. And it just seems like the Bengals will be on the road that week. And I kept the Sunday night games as is. So Bears hosting the Packers week 3, Niners hosting the Bucks in week 2. Okay, so here we go. And again, because, here's the thing about these schedules. It's like a puzzle. You think you got it, and then you see, then there's this glitch here and then that glitch here. But again, we can't please everybody. So here we go. Monday Night Football mock schedule. We will start in week 1. And for this, Chase, I need a big-time Monday Night Football matchup in week 1. And for me, there's no bigger matchup than the last 2 MVPs slinging it against each other, Ravens and Bills in Buffalo. A September night game in Buffalo where it's hot. Bills Mafia is going crazy. The front row is literally right on top of the field. I'm going to miss that when the Bills get their new stadium. But we get to see that again this season. Ravens, Bills, Allen won MVP last year, edging Lamar Jackson. They played in the playoffs last year. Let's see that again right out of the gates. Monday Night Football week 1. Week 2, I'm going the Eagles at the Chargers. So last year, the Eagles were the home team in Brazil. They got a Monday night game the next week. I'm giving that to the Chargers this season. And Eagles-Chargers, I know that's kind of an early game. It's early, a Monday night game in LA. I want to see that. The Eagles are going to be well rested. I think they're going to have like 11 days in between games from opening night kickoff. And that means the Eagles are playing the LA teams 2 weeks in a row. So good to see Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert going at it. 2020 quarterback draft class prospects, if you will. Okay, week 3, and also Nick Sirianni against Jim Harbaugh. Talk about a unique head coaching matchup there.
It's a good one.
Week 3, I'm going with a doubleheader. And again, I don't know when these doubleheaders are. We don't know those. This is just projections. Last year, the doubleheaders were in weeks 3, 4, 7, and 15. I'm going to keep that here. So week 3, I'm going to go 7:15 on ESPN, the Colts at the Steelers.
Okay.
I think Daniel Jones is actually going to beat out Anthony Richardson for the starting quarterback job. That's just me. But I think Daniel Jones is pretty reliable. And if he becomes the starter, I think the Colts have something going with him. And then my 8:30 game on ABC, this is a throwback to the 80s, Niners at the Giants.
Ooh.
I love that I was able to kind of play around with that matchup. So we're going to go with that 8:30 on ABC because, that game deserves to be on ABC. Okay, week 4, another doubleheader. We're going to start with 2 2024 quarterback draft class members going at it against each other. The Falcons at the Patriots, 7:30 on ESPN. And then we're going to go with an interesting one here. We're going to go the Chiefs at the Jaguars, 8:15 on ABC. So that is the first quarter of the Monday Night Football schedule. Chase, what do you think about those? Well, we got 6 games there to look at.
I enjoy all of those. I think the most interesting one that really stands out to me is that Niners-Giants game.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the Niners, again, coming off from 2023, losing the Super Bowl, and then 2024. So many injuries and things happening. This is a big year coming up for San Francisco. And to be in the national spotlight, that game will be played on September 22nd, a Monday night game against the Giants, who – again, we'll see what they do when it comes to quarterback. I know obviously they have Russell Wilson now, Jameis Winston. You would expect Russ to be starting in this game, and Russ versus the Niners, a team that he's seen so many times in his career, and Malik Neighbors against a unit like that. So you get to see Malik Neighbors in primetime television. That is such a good matchup, especially when it comes to the historical aspect and just looking at the visuals on the field of just the colors and everything else that comes with it. I'm excited for that if that happened to be a night game. I love that week 3 doubleheader.
And the Niners would be playing 2 primetime games in a row on the East Coast, so that is a glitch that maybe we have to iron out, maybe change some things there. But then again, you get an extra day of rest. Maybe they stay out there. Maybe they fly back to San Francisco. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens. And you mentioned Russell Wilson. He's not only seen the 49ers, he owns the 49ers. Yeah. He's had a lot of success in his career against the 49ers. So very interesting matchup there if that happens. Okay, now we turn to week 5. This is one of my favorite games on the schedule. The first Monday of October, I want to be in San Francisco. Now, I know that's 2 Monday night games in a 3-week span. Hey, Tampa Bay did it last year. Yeah. So, Buffalo did 2-4. Dallas did 2-4. So it can't happen. I have the 49ers hosting Bryce Young and the Panthers.
Ooh. Okay.
I think the Panthers are going to get a primetime game this year, and maybe 2.
Give it early. Again, we don't know what they're going to be, but give it early. Yes. Let's see if Bryce can continue the momentum. I want to see that because he had a strong end of the season last year. I think him being benched behind Andy Dalton was the best thing that could have happened to him. Dave Canales is a good head coach. I want to see what that team can do this year. I really want to see what they can do. Okay, week 6, we already got the Jets at the Bengals. Now we're going to go with another doubleheader in week 7. Week 7. First up, the Dolphins at the Falcons, 8:15 on ESPN, a battle of 2 left-handed quarterbacks. Chase, that was one of your marketing ploys way back when. We call that now a marketing pitch because I'm taking it and running with it. And then we're going to throw it back to Monday Night Football when it used to be at 9 o'clock on ABC. We're going to go with the Seahawks at the Commanders. Okay.
That's a good matchup right there.
I like that. I like that a lot.
All right, week 8, we're going to go with the Bears at the Ravens.
That's a tough place for Caleb to play in, man.
It will be. It will be. But the Ravens have not had a Monday night home game in 4 years. 4 years. Isn't that a long time?
Very long.
That's a great atmosphere for a Monday night game last Monday in October. Okay, so we are through weeks 5 through 8. Chase, what do you like in that quarter of the schedule?
If we had the Dolphins Falcons, I would love to see a flip of the 180-degree broadcast line and just see what it would look like as a right-handed perspective. Just give me a distortion of these left-handed quarterbacks throwing the ball right-handed. It would be kind of interesting. I do like that Dolphins Falcons matchup, though.
I feel like there should be that. I feel like there should be. Like,
break the norm,
Yeah. Now, note, I don't have an ESPN Plus game this year because I forget where I saw this. But I remember seeing something that the ratings for the Chargers-Cardinals game last year, the views were so low that ESPN didn't even release it. If that's the case, Monday Night Football should not be on ESPN Plus.
Not at that rate.
No disrespect to ESPN Plus, because I know you've benefited from it. Our colleagues and friends, Ethan, Aiden, and other guys have.
Yeah.
But for stuff like Monday Night Football, should it be on ESPN Plus? Like, it was a nice, I will agree, it was a nice experiment to try out. I was in on it.
Mm-hmm.
But no. Like, do you agree with that?
You go with the result, you see what happens, and then you make changes or you keep going. That was something that, stuff didn't really go well. And when it comes to the ratings, go back to the normal and play this game as a national television game.
Exactly. Okay. Week 9. A classic divisional rivalry, and one that's become that in recent seasons. Packers and Lions in Detroit. First Monday in November in Detroit. Week 10. Now, you can put this game anywhere, but I put it on Monday Night Football, Week 10 to start the second half of the season. Commanders at the Chiefs.
I like it.
Yeah. Week 11, I got a divisional rivalry, Chargers and the Broncos. And then Week 12, the Vikings at the Seahawks.
These are tough. This is a tough one to pick my favorite one out of, but I think I'm going to go Packers-Lions on this one because, again, it's become a really good rivalry now. So the Packers owned Detroit for a very, very long time. But, with that place is going to be rocking, of course. It's going to be tough for Jordan Love to go in there. But Jordan Love's gone in there and played pretty good football the last 2 years when he's had to, given some good games, won a game, lost a game barely. But I think it's going to be a really fun atmosphere for them in Detroit to have that game on Monday Night Football, and they take on Jordan Love and the Packers, a young team that's getting, that's aging together, that is getting that aging like fine wine type of look to them, and the Packers can maybe get over, that wild card round and everything else, and this could be a game at that point in the season, if the Packers have a favorable early market of the schedule, they could try to take first place when it comes to the NFC North. This would be a big one to win on the road.
The crazy thing is they play a third place schedule this year. Last year they played a second place. This year they're playing a third place, and they've been the 7th seed the last 2 seasons. So I think the next step is get to like that 5 seed. Maybe, as you said, overtake the Lions in the division. Look, the Lions, are they going to go 15-2 again this year? It's going to be very difficult to repeat that. But look, they have talented players, and anybody would want to come in and coordinate the offense or coordinate the defense. They'll be healthier this year on defense. And as long as Dan Campbell's still running the show, the Lions aren't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. Now, will they have to go on the road for the playoffs? Maybe, but they're not going to completely fall off a cliff. They went 15-2 last year. Okay. Let's go to week 13. Chase, you remember that what do they call that? The wind tunnel that was Buffalo 4 years ago with the Patriots and the Bills?
Yeah. Oh my God, that was insane. That was
crazy. The Patriots threw 3 passes and won that game. We're going to run it back this year. Drake May and Josh Allen, Patriots, Bills, week 13. We got the Bengals and Vikings, we mentioned, week 14. Now I got a doubleheader in week 15. This is interesting. First up at 8 o'clock on ABC. Actually, I'm going to make that the ESPN game and then make the second game ABC. So 8 o'clock on ESPN and then 8:30 on ABC. So at 8 o'clock on ESPN, we got the Giants and the Raiders.
Okay.
It's an interesting matchup there. And then at 8:30 on ABC, we're going to go with the Cardinals and the 49ers.
West Coast action. I like it.
So I have the 49ers on there 3 times. So that is a glitch that we may have to fix a little bit. But We'll get there. I mean, look, this is the thing. This is why you do this. This is why it's called mock scheduling. Okay?
Yeah,
it's not easy. Now, this one I'm keeping, or at least I hope to keep. Now, right now, I don't have a Monday night game at Lambeau Field. Now, there's been seasons where that hasn't been the case. I might change that, though, because it's the 20th season on ESPN. But how would you like to see the Monday before Christmas and Eagles-Cowboys matchup in Dallas?
Well, you saw them play on Christmas back in 2006 on NBC, but, I wouldn't mind that one bit.
We saw them play on Christmas Eve 3 years ago in that incredible shootout game. Gardner Minshew nearly led the Eagles to a win in that game. Dak Prescott with a 3rd and 30 throw to whoever was the receiver on that play. It was a tremendous game.
Yeah.
That was a Fox game. But to me, an Eagles-Cowboys game needs Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So that's why we got a Monday Night Football Week 16. Okay, I don't care what I have to fix in this schedule. My Week 17 Monday Night Football game is staying, Chase. I saved the best for last. Any guesses?
Yeah, Bengals Bills.
Well, that's the Sunday night game.
Oh, you made it Sunday night.
But it could also be a Monday night game.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you made it Sunday or not Monday. We've been going for a second. I have no idea.
Okay, the Lions at the Rams. How good is that?
Fair. Yeah,
it's a potential NFC Championship preview. It's Jared Goff's return to LA. I mean, the Lions, be their second straight season on the road Monday Night Football Week 17. But when you're good and when you're one of the premier teams in the NFL, you're going to get those games. So from that final quarter, Chase, what do you like?
I love that Lions-Rams game, especially on the national stage for Jared Goff to go back. I know he's already gone back in 2021, but it was that single 4:05 game on Fox. So obviously didn't get that much national attention. But this time, with it being the implications possible for Stafford versus Goff once again. I mean, we've seen these guys play many times actually in the last, couple years now. They get another chance, but that, and then when you look at Cowboys Eagles, at that point in time, we don't know what the Dallas Cowboys are now. We'll know one way or another what they are, and the Eagles are obviously a very good football team at the moment. We'll see what they are as well. But when you go to Philadelphia by Christmas time, I mean, they beat up Santa. So
yeah, they did.
I mean, just seeing the Philly and Christmas and the Cowboys duke it out, it doesn't get old. It never does. And both teams will be up to play for that one.
Keep in mind, the NFC East hasn't had a repeat division champion since 2004, and that Week 16 game, could that have division title implications? Hey, you never know. But anyway, next show, we've got our Thursday Night Football Prime Video mock schedule. That's going to be fun. And you just might see a Cooper Kupp return to LA on there. I mean, you might see you'll see some good games on there. We know the Bengals were already on there once. Okay, so we have. I mean, I think we've covered pretty much anything. By the way,
got it.
By the way, so I was thinking about this. We talk about press box, press room food all the time, and I was watching an old episode of MasterChef that's on Fox with Gordon Ramsay. Yep. So I'm watching it, and this episode, the pressure test for the losing team for the team challenge was a box of cannolis. They had to make a box of 6 cannolis, and that got me thinking, because I love me some cannolis. And that got me thinking. So, Chase, if you were to go, let's say tomorrow you go to a restaurant for dinner. You take your girlfriend to a restaurant.
Yep.
And if you can have any one dessert, what would that dessert be?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough question, Alex, because I mean, I got some cheesecake Saturday, salted caramel cheesecake. That's pretty good. Something cookie based, I would say.
Okay.
Like cookie, like a cookie brownie with some ice cream. That's just asking for trouble, but
asking for trouble.
I don't know, man. But
BJ's Brewhouse used to make these cookies that they call Pazookies.
That's literally it. Yeah.
Okay.
I blanked on the name for a second.
You go to Max and Irma's. You go to Max and Irma's, and they used to have the best cookies. Well, aside from my grandmother's, but I mean, for me, I'm going German chocolate cake.
Can't go wrong.
That is a combination of sweet and savory. Very close second for me. You mentioned cheesecake. I'm going to go a New York cheesecake. with that graham cracker crust. And then
Yep.
a very close third, I like a molten lava cake.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that. And I got to add something else. I know Portillo's chocolate cake shake, had that the night before a basketball game my freshman year. Keep me away from there because I'm going to have like many of those, man. Woo, that was so good.
This is like Tony Saragusa in Bullies of Baltimore. In that 30 for 30 documentary, he was describing how he ate wings the night before a game. And he's like, yeah, well, whoever decided we should wear our all white uniforms the next day. And he's like, and then he told someone, I think at the athletic trainer, he goes, if I'm on my back, don't turn me over.
Nope. Don't ask questions.
God rest his soul, Tony Saragusa.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the NBA playoffs that start next week. The play-in tournament, hard to believe that's here. We've got the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Reds are – look, they won 2 out of 3 from the Giants in San Francisco, but, man, they should have won the third game.
They should have, but, there's so many games in the
5-8's it's not the end of the world, but you could be better.
Yep.
And hopefully that they are able to stay afloat as key guys return. Okay, next show, we've got our Thursday Night Football mock schedule. You're going to be floored by my CBS and Fox games I want to see. Like I went so far deep into the weeds last night that I was drafting double headers for CBS and Fox, like number 2 games.
That's crazy. Wow.
So we're getting there. We are definitely getting there. I forget if I have any other broadcast notes. Ian Eagle just continues to get better and better.
Shout out Ian.
Well, we know that. I mean, he is as good of an announcer as there is. By the way, my cousin and I, as we were watching the national championship Monday night, we were rattling off names that we grew up listening to. The most random name that we came up with, Tim Brando.
Yeah, shout out to him.
I had the fortunate of meeting him in 2019 at the Bearcats game at Ohio State. Oh, and nice. He is a very, very nice man. And, this goes back to his SEC. He was the studio host for SEC on CBS.
Yeah, he was.
Wow. I tell you, the names that and then Chase this week, we got the Masters. So that's like a who's who of who's going to be at Augusta National.
A tradition unlike any other. Jim
it is.
Waitin.
It is. All right, Chase, you got any games you're calling coming up?
I'll be on the call for Bearcast Sports Radio on Sunday, Arizona State versus Cincinnati, the end of a 3-game series for the weekend. And that is all I've got.
Bearcats in the transfer portal on the basketball side. A lot of players leaving, but we've gotten some commits. Your thoughts?
Nice. I don't have much because they still have the Fillmore on the rosters. I think it was good to get guards. You need bigs, forwards, figure it out. There we go.
That, as I say, is that. This has been the Waitin' All Day for Sunday Night podcast. He is Chase Younts and Younts Chase 32 on Twitter. I'm Alex Frank at Frankie_Natty. Thank you so much for listening. We are getting closer and closer to schedule release day. And, it's Monday Night Football's 20th season on ESPN, so don't be surprised if you see a spinoff podcast called All My Rowdy Friends Are Here on Monday Night. You see, we're very respectful and even complimentary of the other networks. Because here's the thing, Chase. Networks cross-promote. And if you say, well, they shouldn't do that. They're promoting the NFL. And by the way, they don't have to worry about views. They're good.
They got it.
Yep, they do. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And happy Passover to all my Jewish family and friends. And we will talk to you next time on the Waitin' All Day for Sunday Night podcast.